Lieutenant Marcus Webb stood at attention in the briefing room of Naval Base Coronado, his jaw clenched tight as Commander Stevens outlined the new training protocol. The 42-year-old SEAL had spent 20 years in the Navy, 15 of those in special operations, and he had never been one to question orders. But today, something felt different. The room was filled with other instructors, all seasoned warriors who had seen combat in multiple theaters of war. Commander Stevens cleared his throat and gestured to a woman standing at the back of the room. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and sharp green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore the standard Navy working uniform, but there was something about the way she carried herself that caught Marcus's attention. "Gentlemen, this is Lieutenant Samantha Chun," the commander announced. "She's our new physical training specialist, and will be working alongside you in the Advanced Combat Conditioning Program." Marcus felt his eyebrows raise slightly. A woman instructor in the SEAL training program was not unheard of, but it was certainly rare. He glanced around the room and saw similar expressions of surprise on the faces of his fellow instructors. Some looked curious, others skeptical, and a few, like Chief Petty Officer Rick Donovan, looked openly hostile. After the briefing, Marcus headed to the training compound where the next class of SEAL candidates would begin their infamous Hell Week in just 2 days. The obstacle course stretched out before him, a brutal collection of walls, ropes, mud pits, and other challenges designed to break even the strongest men. He had run this course thousands of times, both as a trainee and as an instructor. "Lieutenant Webb." The voice came from behind him. Marcus turned to find Lieutenant Chin approaching. Up close, he could see the determination in her eyes, but also something else. Was it nervousness? No, he realized. It was anticipation. She was excited to be here. "Lieutenant Chun," he acknowledged with a nod. "Welcome to Coronado." "Thank you, sir," she replied. "I was hoping we could discuss the training schedule. I have some ideas about incorporating new conditioning techniques that have shown promising results in recent studies." Before Marcus could respond, a harsh laugh echoed across the compound. Chief Donovan strode toward them, his muscular frame blocking the afternoon sun. At 6'3" and 230 pounds of solid muscle, Donovan was an imposing figure. He had been a SEAL for 12 years and had a reputation for being both an excellent operator and an uncompromising hard-ass. "Studies," Donovan sneered. "This ain't a college classroom, sweetheart. This is SEAL training. We've been doing this the same way for decades because it works." Samantha's expression remained neutral, but Marcus noticed her hands ball into fists at her sides. "Chief Donovan, I understand tradition is important. I'm not suggesting we throw out what works. I'm proposing we enhance it with evidence-based methods that can reduce injury rates while maintaining the same high standards." Donovan stepped closer, deliberately invading her personal space. "Let me tell you something. I've seen men twice your size wash out of this program, crying for their mothers. What makes you think you have anything to teach us?" Marcus was about to intervene when Samantha spoke again, her voice calm but firm. "With all due respect, Chief, my credentials speak for themselves. I have a doctorate in exercise physiology, I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist, and I've worked with special operations units in 3 different branches. But, more importantly, I'm here under Commander Stevens's orders. If you have a problem with that, I suggest you take it up with him." The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Donovan's face reddened, and, for a moment, Marcus thought the chief might say something he would regret. Instead, Donovan spat on the ground near Samantha's feet and walked away, muttering something under his breath. Samantha let out a long breath. "I guess I should have expected that." Marcus found himself impressed despite his own reservations. "Don't take it personally. Donovan's a good SEAL, but he's old school. Change doesn't come easy to guys like him." "Guys like him?" Samantha raised an eyebrow. "Does that include you, Lieutenant?" Marcus considered the question. "I believe in what works. But I'm also smart enough to know that the world changes, and we need to change with it or get left behind. If your methods can make our operators better, I'm willing to listen." Over the next few days, Marcus observed Samantha as she integrated into the training staff. She arrived before dawn and stayed late into the evening, studying the training regimen, talking with other instructors, and watching the candidates as they prepared for Hell Week. She asked intelligent questions and took copious notes. Despite Donovan's hostility and the cool reception from some of the other instructors, she never complained or showed any sign of backing down. On Thursday evening, Marcus found her in the gym, reviewing footage of the obstacle course on her laptop. The facility was nearly empty, with just a few candidates doing extra PT on the far side of the building. "You staying late again?" Marcus asked, setting his gear bag down on a nearby bench. Samantha looked up and smiled tiredly. "Just trying to get familiar with everything. Hell Week starts in less than 48 hours, and I want to make sure I'm ready." Marcus pulled up a chair and sat down. "Mind if I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Why did you volunteer for this assignment? You could be teaching at the War College or working in research. This is going to be brutal, and not just because of the work. Some of these guys are going to make your life hell." Samantha closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. "My brother was a SEAL," she said quietly. "Danny Chun. He died in Afghanistan 7 years ago." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "I'm sorry. Did you know him?" "Did I know my own brother?" Samantha gave him a puzzled look. "No, I meant did I know him? Your brother." "Oh." She shook her head. "Probably not. He was with Team 7. But thank you for asking." She paused, her eyes distant. "Danny loved being a SEAL more than anything. He used to tell me stories about the training, the missions, the brotherhood. When he died, I felt like I lost my purpose. I was just a grad student studying exercise science. It seemed so meaningless compared to what he was doing." "So you decided to follow in his footsteps?" "In my own way, yes. I can't be a SEAL, obviously, but I can use my knowledge and skills to help train the next generation of warriors. Maybe I can help keep some of them alive. Maybe I can honor Danny's memory by making the program better, stronger, more effective." Marcus nodded slowly. He understood that kind of motivation, that need to serve something larger than yourself. That's admirable. But you should know that some of these guys will never accept you, no matter how qualified you are or how hard you work. "I know," Samantha said, "but I'm not here for their acceptance. I'm here to do a job." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion from the other side of the gym. Marcus and Samantha both looked up to see Chief Donovan entering with 2 other instructors, Staff Sergeant Mike Torres and Petty Officer First Class Jason Burke. All 3 men had clearly been drinking. Their voices were loud, their movements unsteady. Well, Donovan called out when he spotted them. "Look who's having a cozy little chat. You making your move already, Webb? Getting friendly with the new girl?" Marcus stood up, his patience wearing thin. "Go sleep it off, Chief. All of you." Torres laughed. "Come on, Marcus. We're just having a little fun. No harm in that." He looked at Samantha with a leering grin. "Hey, sweetheart, why don't you come have a drink with us? We can show you how real warriors relax." Samantha remained seated, her expression unreadable. "I think I'll pass, Staff Sergeant. But thank you for the invitation." Burke stepped forward. "What's wrong? Think you're too good for us?" "I think you're drunk," Samantha replied calmly. "And I think you should leave before you say or do something you'll regret in the morning." Donovan's face twisted with anger. He had never liked being talked back to, and alcohol had stripped away what little restraint he normally maintained. He strode toward Samantha, his boots heavy on the gym floor. Marcus moved to intercept him, but Donovan was faster than his size suggested. He reached Samantha's chair and kicked it hard, sending it sliding backward. Samantha rolled with the motion, coming to her feet in a smooth, practiced movement. "Is that supposed to intimidate me?" she asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline that must have been coursing through her veins. Donovan raised his leg, preparing to kick again, this time aimed at Samantha herself. But before his boot could connect, several things happened almost simultaneously. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing Donovan's arm and yanking him backward. At the same time, Samantha stepped inside Donovan's guard and swept his supporting leg, using his own momentum against him. The big SEAL crashed to the floor with a sound that echoed through the gym. Torres and Burke moved to help their friend, but Marcus held up a hand. "Don't. This ends now." For a long moment, nobody moved. Donovan lay on the floor, stunned and furious. Torres and Burke stood frozen, uncertain what to do. Samantha remained in a defensive stance, her breathing controlled and even. Then, the door to the gym burst open, and Commander Stevens entered with 2 Master-at-Arms personnel. His face was a mask of cold fury. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded. Nobody spoke at first. Then, Samantha stepped forward. "Sir, there was an incident. Chief Donovan and his colleagues were intoxicated and became aggressive." Lieutenant Webb intervened before anyone was seriously hurt. Stevens looked at each person in turn, his gaze lingering on Donovan, who was still on the floor. "Chief, get up. Torres, Burke, help him." The 3 men scrambled to comply, Donovan's face burning with humiliation. "All 3 of you are confined to quarters pending an investigation," Stevens said. "And you can kiss your instructor positions goodbye. I will not tolerate this kind of behavior in my command." After the Master-at-Arms escorted the 3 men out, Stevens turned to Marcus and Samantha. "Are either of you injured?" "No, sir," they both replied. Stevens sighed and rubbed his temples. "Lieutenant Chun, I apologize. This should never have happened. You have my assurance that appropriate action will be taken." "Thank you, Commander," Samantha said. Stevens left, and Marcus and Samantha were alone again in the now quiet gym. Marcus looked at her with new respect. "That was some move you pulled. Where did you learn that?" Samantha smiled slightly. "My brother wasn't the only member of the family who believed in being prepared. I've been training in martial arts since I was 12. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, Muay Thai. I figured if I was going to work in this environment, I should be able to handle myself." Marcus laughed. "I think you just proved that. Donovan outweighs you by at least 100 pounds, and you put him on his ass like it was nothing." "It wasn't nothing," Samantha admitted. "My heart is still racing. But I couldn't let him see that I was scared. These guys are like wolves. They can smell fear." "You did good," Marcus said. "Really good. And, for what it's worth, you've got at least 1 ally on the training staff." Samantha met his eyes. "Thank you, Lieutenant. That means a lot." As they gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, neither of them realized that the incident in the gym was just the beginning. Word of what had happened would spread through the base like wildfire, and by morning, everyone from the newest recruit to the base commander would be talking about the new female instructor who had taken down one of the most feared SEALs on the West Coast. The real test, however, was still to come. Hell Week would begin in less than 2 days, and Samantha would have to prove herself not just to the instructors, but to the candidates themselves. And in the brutal, unforgiving crucible of SEAL training, reputation meant everything. The sun had barely cracked the horizon when Samantha arrived at the training compound Monday morning. Hell Week officially began at sunset, but she wanted to be there early to observe the candidates before the chaos started. The air was cool and damp, typical for San Diego in the early hours, and a thin layer of fog hung over the obstacle course like a shroud. She found Marcus already there, clipboard in hand, watching the candidates as they completed their morning PT. There were 43 men in this class, all of them having already survived months of grueling preparation. By the end of Hell Week, she knew that number would likely be cut in half or more. The statistics were brutal and unforgiving. "Morning," Marcus said without taking his eyes off the candidates. "You ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Samantha replied. She had spent the weekend reviewing every piece of footage and documentation she could find about previous Hell Weeks. She had memorized the schedule, the challenges, the protocols. But she also knew that no amount of preparation could fully capture the intensity of what was about to unfold. The news of Friday night's incident had spread exactly as Marcus had predicted. When Samantha walked through the base, she noticed the stares, the whispers. Some were curious, others respectful, and a few were openly hostile. Chief Donovan, Staff Sergeant Torres, and Petty Officer Burke had been reassigned pending the results of the investigation. Their absence left a gap in the instructor team, but Commander Stevens had been clear that there would be no tolerance for the kind of behavior they had displayed. Throughout the morning, Samantha worked alongside the other instructors, checking equipment, reviewing procedures, and preparing for the week ahead. Some of the instructors were cordial, like Lieutenant Jake Morrison, a soft-spoken SEAL with 10 years of experience. Others, like Senior Chief Paul Richardson, were polite but distant, clearly reserving judgment until they saw how she performed under pressure. At noon, the candidates were given their last real meal for the week. After this, they would be lucky to grab quick bites of cold food between evolutions. Samantha watched them eat, noting who was nervous, who was confident, who was trying to hide their fear behind bravado. She had learned from her brother that SEAL training was as much psychological as physical. The instructors were looking for men who could maintain their composure and continue to function even when every fiber of their being screamed to quit. As the day wore on, tension built throughout the compound. The candidates knew what was coming, but anticipation was its own form of torture. At 1700 hours, they assembled on the beach, standing in formation as the sun began its descent toward the Pacific Ocean. Commander Stevens addressed them, his voice carrying across the sand. "Gentlemen, you've come a long way to be here. You've endured months of training, pushed your bodies to their limits, and proven that you have what it takes to be here today. But Hell Week is where we separate those who want to be SEALs from those who will be SEALs. Over the next 5.5 days, you will get a total of about 4 hours of sleep. You will be cold, wet, exhausted, and pushed beyond anything you've ever experienced. Some of you will ring that bell." He gestured to the brass bell mounted on a post nearby, the symbol of quitting. "There's no shame in it. This isn't for everyone. But for those who make it through, you will have earned the right to continue on the path to becoming a Navy SEAL." As sunset painted the sky orange and purple, the instructors activated the chaos. Bullhorns blared, machine gun fire sound effects crackled from speakers, and instructors began shouting orders. The candidates were ordered into the surf, then out, then back in again. They bear-crawled through the sand, did push-ups until their arms shook, ran in formation carrying logs over their heads. And this was just the beginning. Samantha moved among the candidates with the other instructors, observing, taking notes, occasionally correcting form or offering encouragement. She noticed one candidate in particular, a stocky young man named Rodriguez, who seemed to be struggling more than the others. His movements were slower, his breathing labored. She made a note to keep an eye on him. Hours passed in a blur of activity. The candidates moved from one evolution to the next with barely a moment to catch their breath. They completed the obstacle course multiple times, performed endless calisthenics, and endured what the instructors called surf torture, lying in the frigid ocean water until their core temperatures dropped and their bodies shook uncontrollably. Around midnight, Samantha was supervising a group of candidates doing log PT when she heard a commotion behind her. She turned to see Rodriguez collapsed on the sand, his body convulsing. Medical personnel rushed over immediately, and Samantha followed. "He's hypothermic," one of the corpsmen announced after a quick assessment. "Core temp is way too low. We need to get him warm, now." As the medical team worked to stabilize Rodriguez, Samantha noticed something that made her blood run cold. Several of the other candidates were showing similar signs, subtle shivering and sluggish movements. She quickly pulled Marcus aside. "We need to rotate the candidates out of the water more frequently," she said urgently. "The water temperature is lower than predicted, and we're pushing hypothermia protocol too far." Marcus frowned. "This is Hell Week. It's supposed to be brutal." "There's a difference between brutal and dangerous," Samantha insisted. "If we lose candidates to medical issues that could have been prevented, that's not testing their mental toughness. That's negligence." Marcus studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "You're right. I'll talk to Commander Stevens." Within the hour, adjustments were made to the rotation schedule. Candidates were given slightly longer breaks between water evolutions, though still nowhere near comfortable. Rodriguez was medically dropped from the program, but no other candidates suffered serious hypothermia. Later, Marcus quietly thanked Samantha for catching the issue before it became a larger problem. As Tuesday dawned, the candidates were exhausted, but still functioning. The instructors kept up the pressure, moving them through a series of timed runs, more obstacle courses, and a particularly brutal session of boat crew races. 6-man teams carried heavy rubber boats on their heads as they ran through sand, surf, and mud. The competition was fierce, and tempers flared as tired bodies and frayed nerves led to conflicts within the teams. Samantha watched one boat crew in particular. They were struggling, falling behind the other teams, and their boat crew leader, a tall candidate named Morrison, was trying to compensate by shouting orders and criticizing his teammates. The dynamic was toxic, and Samantha could see it falling apart in real time. During a brief break, she approached Morrison. "What's your strategy?" she asked. Morrison looked at her with barely concealed contempt. "My strategy? To win. But my team is dragging me down. Is that right?" Samantha kept her voice neutral. "Tell me something. When you're operating downrange in a real mission and things go wrong, are you going to blame your team? Or are you going to figure out how to lead them through it?" Morrison's jaw clenched. "This is different." "No, it's not," Samantha said firmly. "This is exactly what this training is about. Not just physical strength, but leadership under pressure. Your team isn't failing you. You're failing them. Look at them. They're exhausted, they're frustrated, and their leader is telling them they're not good enough. How do you think that affects their performance?" Morrison didn't respond, but Samantha could see something shifting in his expression. She continued, "You want to win? Stop trying to do everything yourself. Trust your team. Encourage them. Build them up instead of tearing them down. That's what real leaders do." She walked away, leaving Morrison to process her words. An hour later, during the next boat race, she noticed a change. Morrison was still pushing his team hard, but his approach was different. He was encouraging his teammates, finding their strengths, distributing the load more effectively. They didn't win the race, but they finished strong, and more importantly, they finished together. Wednesday brought new challenges. The candidates were now operating on almost no sleep, their bodies breaking down, their minds starting to play tricks on them. Hallucinations were common at this stage. Men would see things that weren't there, hear voices, lose track of where they were or what they were doing. The instructors watched carefully, looking for signs of genuine medical distress versus simple exhaustion. During an underwater knot-tying exercise in the pool, Samantha noticed one candidate, a young man named Chun, no relation, panicking. He was flailing, gulping water, his eyes wide with terror. Without hesitation, Samantha dove into the pool fully clothed and pulled him to the surface. "Breathe," she commanded, holding him steady. "You're okay. Just breathe." Chun gasped and coughed, water streaming from his nose and mouth. "I can't do this," he choked out. "I can't." "Yes, you can," Samantha said firmly. "That was a panic attack, not a physical limitation. You know how to swim. You know how to hold your breath. Your mind got in the way. That's all." She helped him to the edge of the pool, where a corpsman checked him over. Chun was physically fine, just shaken. The instructor supervising the pool exercise, Senior Chief Richardson, approached Samantha. "Good catch," he said grudgingly. "He could have drowned if you hadn't moved when you did." "Just doing my job," Samantha replied, wringing water from her uniform. Richardson studied her for a moment. "Look, I'll be straight with you. When Commander Stevens told us we were getting a female instructor, I had my doubts. Nothing personal, just didn't see how it would work. But you've proven me wrong. You know your stuff, you stay calm under pressure, and you actually give a damn about these candidates. That's more than I can say for some instructors I've worked with." "Thank you, Senior Chief," Samantha said, surprised by the compliment. "That means a lot." As Wednesday turned into Thursday, the attrition rate climbed. 8 candidates had rung the bell, unable to continue. Several others had been medically dropped due to injuries or illness. The remaining candidates looked like zombies, their movements mechanical, their faces blank with exhaustion. But they kept going. Thursday afternoon brought one of the most iconic and dreaded evolutions of Hell Week around the world. The candidates would paddle their boats from Coronado down the coast to Imperial Beach and back, a distance of roughly 14 miles. The ocean was rough, waves crashing over the small boats, and the candidates had to work together perfectly to keep from capsizing. Samantha was in one of the safety boats that followed the candidates, along with Marcus and a team of medics. They watched carefully, ready to intervene if anyone got into serious trouble. The paddle was brutal, testing not just physical endurance, but mental fortitude. Every stroke was agony for arms that had been worked beyond exhaustion. Every wave that crashed over the boat was another test of will. About halfway through the evolution, one of the boats flipped. 6 candidates were suddenly, in the cold, turbulent water, fighting to keep their heads above the surface while trying to right their boat. The safety boat immediately moved in, but Samantha could see that one of the candidates was in trouble. He had become separated from his boat crew and was being pulled out by a rip current. "There," she shouted, pointing. "Man in the water, caught in a rip." Marcus was already moving, directing the boat toward the struggling candidate. But the waves were pushing them off course, and Samantha realized they might not reach him in time. Without thinking, she grabbed a rescue float, attached it to a rope, and dove into the water. The ocean was shockingly cold, and the current was strong, but Samantha was a trained swimmer and knew how to work with the water instead of against it. She angled across the rip current, gradually making her way toward the candidate. When she reached him, he was barely conscious, his body limp and unresponsive. "I've got you," she shouted over the roar of the waves. She secured the rescue float under his arms and signaled to the safety boat. They pulled them both in, and the medics immediately began working on the candidate, whose name was Thompson. He was hypothermic and had swallowed a significant amount of water, but he was alive. As they returned to shore, Marcus sat down next to Samantha, who was wrapped in a blanket, but still shivering. "That was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid," he said. "I'm still trying to figure out which." "Maybe both," Samantha admitted with a weak smile. "But I couldn't just watch him drown." "No," Marcus agreed. "You couldn't. That's what makes you a good instructor. You care." Later that evening, after the candidates had completed Around the World and moved on to the next evolution, Commander Stevens called Samantha to his office. She went with some trepidation, wondering if she was in trouble for jumping into the water without explicit authorization. Stevens gestured for her to sit. "Lieutenant Chun, I wanted to speak with you about your performance this week." "Sir, if this is about the rescue, I know I should have waited for authorization, but there wasn't time and I judged." Stevens held up a hand, cutting her off. "Lieutenant, I'm not reprimanding you. Quite the opposite. Your actions today saved candidate Thompson's life. The medics confirmed that he would have drowned if you hadn't reached him when you did. I'm putting you in for a commendation." Samantha was stunned. "Sir, I was just doing my job." "You went above and beyond your job," Stevens corrected. "And not just today. All week, you've demonstrated exceptional knowledge, sound judgment, and genuine concern for the candidate's welfare. You caught the hypothermia issue that could have resulted in multiple medical evacuations. You've been counseling candidates on mental resilience and team dynamics. You saved Chun from drowning in the pool and Thompson from the ocean. Lieutenant Webb has nothing but praise for your contributions to the training program." Samantha felt a lump forming in her throat. "Thank you, sir. This assignment means everything to me." Stevens smiled. "I know about your brother, Lieutenant. Danny was a good SEAL and a good man. I think he would be very proud of what you're doing here." After leaving the commander's office, Samantha returned to the compound. It was now early Friday morning, and the candidates were in the final stretch of Hell Week. They had survived 4.5 days of torture, and now they just had to make it through the next 24 hours. She found Marcus coordinating the instructors for the final series of evolutions. He saw her and waved her over. "How'd it go with the commander?" "Good," she said. "Really good, actually. He's putting me in for a commendation for the Thompson rescue." Marcus grinned. "Congratulations. You've earned it." He paused, then added, "You know, when you first arrived, I had my doubts. Not about your qualifications, but about whether the culture here would ever accept you. But you've done more than prove yourself. You've earned the respect of the entire training staff, including the candidates." "That's no small feat." Samantha looked out at the candidates, now covered in mud and sand, their faces etched with exhaustion and determination. "I just wanted to honor my brother's memory," she said quietly. "I wanted to make a difference." "You have," Marcus assured her. "More than you know." Friday morning arrived with a mixture of relief and anticipation. Hell Week was nearly over, and the candidates who had survived this far knew that the end was in sight. Of the 43 men who had started, only 28 remained. 15 had either rung the bell or been medically dropped. Each loss was noted, documented, but not mourned. This was the nature of SEAL training. Not everyone made it through. Samantha had barely slept in the past 5 days, catching only brief naps between evolutions. The instructors worked in shifts, but she had volunteered for extra hours, wanting to be present for as much of Hell Week as possible. Her eyes burned with fatigue, and her muscles ached from the constant movement and tension, but she pushed through. She had something to prove, not to the doubters, but to herself. The morning evolution was a timed run through an obstacle course that had been made even more challenging by the addition of smoke, sound effects simulating gunfire, and instructors shouting contradictory orders. The goal was to test the candidate's ability to maintain focus and execute under chaotic conditions. Samantha watched from a raised platform, timing each candidate and noting their performance. One candidate stood out. His name was Lieutenant Junior Grade Alex Hartley, and he had been a standout performer throughout Hell Week. He was smart, physically capable, and possessed natural leadership qualities that made other candidates gravitate toward him. But Samantha had noticed something troubling. Hartley had developed a slight limp over the past day, favoring his right leg. He was hiding it well, but to someone trained to spot such things, it was obvious. After the evolution, Samantha approached Hartley as he was preparing for the next challenge. "Lieutenant Hartley, I need to see your right leg." Hartley's expression didn't change. "My leg is fine, ma'am." "That wasn't a request," Samantha said firmly. "Show me your leg." Reluctantly, Hartley rolled up his pant leg. What Samantha saw made her breath catch. His entire calf was swollen and discolored, clear signs of a serious strain or possibly a stress fracture. He should have reported to medical days ago. "When did this happen?" she demanded. "Tuesday," Hartley admitted. "During boat races. I felt something pop, but I couldn't stop. If I went to medical, I'd be dropped." Samantha felt a surge of conflicting emotions. She understood his motivation. After coming this far, the thought of being medically dropped so close to the end was unbearable. But she also knew that pushing through a serious injury could cause permanent damage. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "I know you want to finish. I know how much this means to you. But if you've got a stress fracture and you keep training on it, you could do permanent damage. You might never be able to complete SEAL training. Is finishing this week worth ending your career before it starts?" Hartley's jaw clenched. "You don't understand. My father was a SEAL. My grandfather was a SEAL. This is my family legacy. I can't quit." "I'm not asking you to quit," Samantha said. "I'm asking you to be smart. Let the medics examine you. If it's just a strain, they can tape it up, and you might be able to finish. But if it's a fracture, you need to heal. There will be other Hell Weeks. But you only get one body." For a long moment, Hartley didn't respond. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Okay, I'll go to medical." Samantha personally escorted him to the medical tent, where the corpsman confirmed her suspicions. It was a stress fracture, not severe, but serious enough that continuing would make it worse. Hartley was devastated, but Samantha sat with him while the medics explained the recovery process and assured him that he could return to training once he healed. "You made the right choice," Samantha told him. "This isn't failure. This is an injury, and injuries happen. You'll be back." "Thank you, ma'am," Hartley said quietly, "for caring enough to make me stop." As Samantha left the medical tent, she nearly collided with a man she didn't recognize. He was tall, perhaps in his mid-50s, with graying hair and the bearing of someone who had spent his life in the military. His uniform showed the rank of captain. "Lieutenant Chin?" the man asked. "Yes, sir," Samantha replied, coming to attention. "At ease," the captain said with a slight smile. "I'm Captain Robert Mitchell. I'm the commanding officer of Naval Special Warfare Group 1. I've been hearing a lot about you." Samantha felt her heart rate increase. "I hope it's been good things, sir." "Very good things," Mitchell confirmed. "Commander Stevens speaks highly of your work this week. And I understand you've made quite an impression on the training staff. That's not easy to do." "Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to do my job to the best of my ability." Mitchell nodded. "Walk with me, Lieutenant." They walked together along the beach, the sound of the surf providing a peaceful counterpoint to the chaos of the training compound behind them. Mitchell was quiet for a few moments before speaking. 25 years ago, when I went through SEAL training, the idea of a woman on the training staff would have been unthinkable," he said. "Times change, of course, and they should. But change is hard, especially in communities like ours that are built on tradition and brotherhood. The fact that you've managed to earn the respect of your colleagues in less than a week is remarkable." "I've had good mentors," Samantha said. "Lieutenant Webb has been supportive, and even some of the instructors who were initially skeptical have come around. I read the report about the incident with Chief Donovan," Mitchell said. "That must have been difficult." Samantha chose her words carefully. "It was a challenging situation, sir. But I believe it was handled appropriately. So do I, Mitchell agreed. Donovan's a good operator, but he let his prejudices and alcohol impair his judgment. He'll face appropriate consequences. But I don't want you to think that his attitude is representative of the SEAL community as a whole. Most of us recognize that talent and dedication matter more than gender. They walked in silence for a few more moments before Mitchell stopped and turned to face her. I'm here today because I wanted to see for myself how you were performing. I've been watching, and I've been talking to the other instructors. Lieutenant Chun, I'm impressed. Your knowledge, your instincts, your ability to balance toughness with compassion. These are qualities we need in our training program. Thank you, sir, Samantha said, feeling a swell of pride. I'm going to recommend to Commander Stevens that your assignment here be extended, Mitchell continued. And I want to talk to you about developing a new training protocol based on some of the innovations you've introduced this week. The hypothermia rotation adjustment, the psychological resilience coaching, the emphasis on team dynamics. These are valuable contributions that could improve the program across all SEAL training facilities. Samantha was speechless. This was beyond anything she had hoped for. Sir, I would be honored. Mitchell smiled. Good. We'll talk more after Hell Week concludes. But I wanted you to know that your work here is making a real difference. Keep it up, Lieutenant. As Mitchell walked away, Samantha stood on the beach, watching the waves roll in. She thought about her brother, about Danny, and all the times he had described his SEAL training to her. She wished he could be here to see this, to know that she had found a way to carry on his legacy in her own way. The final day of Hell Week progressed with a mixture of relief and renewed energy. The candidates knew they were close to the finish line, and that knowledge gave them strength they didn't know they had. The instructors kept up the pressure, but there was a subtle shift in atmosphere. The torture was still there, but there was also a growing sense of mutual respect between the candidates and the training staff. Late Friday afternoon, Samantha was supervising a beach evolution when she noticed something unusual. One of the candidates, a quiet young man named Petty Officer James Winters, was sitting apart from his boat crew. His teammates were resting and joking with each other, but Winters was alone, his head down, his shoulders shaking. Samantha approached quietly and sat down next to him. Winters, you okay? The young man looked up, and Samantha saw tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, ma'am. I know I shouldn't be crying. I'm almost done. I just need to hold it together for a few more hours. What's going on? Samantha asked gently. Winters took a shuddering breath. My mom called this morning. Well, she called a few days ago, but I just got the message. My little sister is sick. Really sick. She's in the hospital, and they don't know if she's going to make it. And I'm here, and I can't be with her, and I don't know what to do. Samantha felt her heart break for this young man. Have you talked to Commander Stevens? No, ma'am. I don't want special treatment. I don't want to be the guy who quit because of a family emergency. I need to finish this. Listen to me, Samantha said firmly. Family is not a weakness. Family is a strength. If you need to be with your sister, nobody here is going to think less of you. SEAL training will still be here when you come back. But your sister needs you now. Winters shook his head. I can't quit. Not this close to the end. Samantha understood his conflict. She also understood that sometimes the bravest thing a person could do was choose what mattered most. Let me talk to Commander Stevens. No promises, but maybe there's a way for you to finish and still get to your sister. An hour later, Samantha stood in Commander Stevens's office, explaining the situation. Stevens listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. How close is he to finishing? Stevens asked. He's completed all the major evolutions, Samantha said. He's physically and mentally capable. He's proven himself. All that's left is the final run and the securing phase. Stevens considered this. Here's what I'm willing to do. Winters can complete the final evolution tonight. As soon as Hell Week officially ends, we'll arrange emergency leave for him to fly to be with his family. He'll have completed Hell Week, but we'll be flexible on the administrative wrap-up. He can handle that when he returns. Thank you, sir, Samantha said. That means a lot. Go tell him, Stevens said. And Chun, you were right to bring this to me. Taking care of our people is just as important as training them. When Samantha told Winters the news, the relief on his face was palpable. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Don't thank me, Samantha said. Thank Commander Stevens. And Winters? When you get to your sister, you tell her that her big brother is a warrior who never gave up. That kind of strength runs in families. That evening, as the sun set on Friday, the 27 remaining candidates assembled on the beach for the final evolution of Hell Week. They had survived 5.5 days of torture, pushing their bodies and minds beyond what they thought possible. Now, they just had to complete one last timed run, and Hell Week would be over. Samantha stood with the other instructors as Commander Stevens addressed the candidates. His words were simple but powerful. You came here as individuals. You leave as a team. You came here thinking you knew what you were capable of. You leave knowing that you can do far more than you ever imagined. Welcome to the other side of Hell Week, gentlemen. You've earned it. The final run was a blur of motion. The candidates, energized by the knowledge that the end was near, pushed through their exhaustion and completed the course faster than anyone expected. As the last candidate crossed the finish line, a cheer went up from the training staff. Hell Week was over. The candidates were given their brown shirts, the traditional symbol of completing Hell Week. They were also given food, real food, and for the first time in nearly 6 days, they were allowed to sleep. Most of them collapsed where they stood, their bodies finally giving in to the exhaustion they had been fighting. Samantha watched them sleep, these warriors who had pushed themselves to the brink and beyond. She thought about Hartley, who would be back. She thought about Winters, who would soon be with his sister. She thought about all 27 men who had made it through, and the 16 who hadn't. Each one had given everything they had. Marcus came to stand beside her. You did good work this week, Sam. It was the first time he had called her by her first name, and she appreciated the gesture of camaraderie. So did you, Marcus. I mean it, Marcus said. When you first arrived, I wasn't sure how this was going to work. But you've proven yourself in every way that matters. You saved lives, you improved the training, and you earned the respect of everyone here. That's not easy. It wasn't supposed to be easy, Samantha replied with a tired smile. Nothing worth doing ever is. As the sun rose Saturday morning on the exhausted but triumphant candidates, Samantha finally allowed herself to rest. She had survived her first Hell Week as an instructor, but more than that, she had made a real difference. She had honored her brother's memory not by trying to be him, but by being herself and using her unique skills and knowledge to make the program better. The future held new challenges, she knew. There would be more candidates to train, more evolutions to supervise, more moments where she would have to prove herself. But she was ready for them. She had found her place in the SEAL community, not despite being different, but because of what her differences brought to the table. 3 weeks after Hell Week ended, life at Naval Base Coronado had settled into a new rhythm. The candidates who had survived were now in the next phase of their training, learning diving, land warfare, and the specialized skills that would turn them from Hell Week survivors into actual Navy SEALs. The attrition rate had slowed, but it hadn't stopped. 2 more candidates had dropped from the program, unable to handle the academic demands or the continued physical challenges. Samantha had officially been extended as a permanent instructor, and her office in the training compound was now filled with research papers, training manuals, and photographs from previous classes. She had begun implementing the new protocols Captain Mitchell had requested, working with a team of exercise physiologists, psychologists, and experienced SEAL operators to modernize the training program while maintaining its legendary difficulty. The changes were subtle but significant. Recovery protocols had been adjusted to reduce overuse injuries without making the training easier. Nutritional guidelines were updated based on the latest sports science research. Mental resilience training was incorporated more systematically throughout the program, teaching candidates techniques for managing stress, maintaining focus under pressure, and recovering from setbacks. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some of the old guard instructors grumbled that the training was being made soft, that the modern Navy was coddling candidates who would have washed out in their day. But the data was clear. Injury rates had decreased by 15%, while completion rates had actually increased slightly. The candidates who graduated under the new protocols were just as tough and capable as any who had come before them, but they were also better educated about their own physical and mental limits. On a Tuesday morning in early December, Samantha was reviewing training footage in her office when there was a knock on her door. She looked up to find Lieutenant Alex Hartley standing in the doorway, his uniform crisp, his posture confident. "Hartley." Samantha stood up, genuinely pleased to see him. "How's the leg?" "Completely healed, ma'am," Hartley replied with a grin. "The doctors cleared me for full duty last week. I'm rejoining the program with the next class. They start Hell Week in 3 weeks." "That's fantastic news," Samantha said. "And thank you for coming back. A lot of guys who get medically dropped never return." Hartley's expression grew serious. "I wanted to thank you, ma'am, for making me go to medical when you did. The doctors told me that if I had kept training on that fracture, I could have done permanent damage. I might never have been able to complete the program. You saved my career." "You saved your own career by having the courage to listen," Samantha corrected. "But I appreciate you saying that. I know it wasn't an easy decision. My father called me when he heard what happened," Hartley continued. "He wanted to talk to the instructor who pulled me from training. I thought he was going to be angry, but he wasn't. He said that knowing when to push through and when to step back is one of the most important lessons a warrior can learn. He said you did the right thing, and he wanted to thank you personally." Samantha felt a lump forming in her throat. "That means a lot. Tell your father I said thank you for raising a son with good judgment." After Hartley left, Samantha returned to her work, but she found herself thinking about the conversation. These moments, when she could see the real impact of her work, made all the challenges worthwhile. Every candidate she helped, every injury she prevented, every career she saved was a small victory in her mission to honor her brother's legacy. Later that week, Samantha attended a meeting at Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters. Present were Captain Mitchell, Commander Stevens, and several other senior officers involved in SEAL training and operations. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the expansion of the new training protocols to other SEAL training facilities. "Lieutenant Chun," Captain Mitchell began, "your work over the past month has exceeded our expectations. The data clearly shows improvements in multiple key metrics. We'd like to roll out your protocols to all West Coast training facilities, and eventually to the East Coast as well." "That's wonderful, sir," Samantha said. "I'm happy to help with the implementation, however I can." "There's more," Mitchell continued. "We're establishing a new position, Director of SEAL Training Innovation. The role would involve overseeing research, developing new training methods, and serving as a liaison between the academic community and our operational training staff. We'd like to offer you that position." Samantha was stunned. "Sir, I'm honored. But I've only been here a few months. There are far more experienced instructors who might be better suited." "Experience matters," Commander Stevens interjected, "but so does fresh perspective and specialized expertise. You have a unique combination of academic knowledge, practical experience, and the respect of the training community. That's rare and valuable." "The position would be a significant responsibility," Mitchell added. "You'd be traveling between facilities, presenting research at conferences, working with civilian universities. It would be demanding, but it would also give you the opportunity to shape the future of SEAL training in a meaningful way." Samantha thought about what this would mean. More responsibility, certainly, but also more opportunity to make a difference. She thought about her brother, about what he would say if he were here. She could almost hear his voice. "Go for it, Sam. Make them better. Make them ready." "I accept," she said. "Thank you for the opportunity, sir." The meeting continued for another hour, discussing timelines, budgets, and implementation strategies. When it finally concluded, Samantha walked out of the building in a daze. In less than 2 months, she had gone from being a newly arrived instructor facing skepticism and hostility to being appointed director of SEAL Training Innovation. It was almost surreal. She found Marcus waiting for her outside. "How'd it go?" he asked. "They offered me the director of training innovation position," Samantha said, "and I accepted." Marcus smiled and held out his hand. "Congratulations. That's a big deal." As they shook hands, Samantha noticed someone approaching from across the parking lot. Her breath caught when she recognized Chief Donovan. She hadn't seen him since the night of the incident in the gym. He looked different, somehow. Less aggressive, more subdued. "Lieutenant Chun," Donovan said, coming to a stop a respectful distance away. "I heard you got promoted. Congratulations." "Thank you, Chief," Samantha replied cautiously. Donovan looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Look, I owe you an apology. What I did that night in the gym was inexcusable. I let alcohol and prejudice cloud my judgment, and I acted like a complete jackass. You didn't deserve that. Samantha studied him carefully. His apology seemed genuine, but she wanted to understand the motivation behind it. What made you change your mind about me? I had a lot of time to think after I was reassigned, Donovan said. And I talked to some people, including guys who worked with you during Hell Week. They told me about the Thompson rescue, about how you spotted the hypothermia issue, about Hartley and Winters. They told me you're a damn good instructor who cares about the candidates and the mission, and I realized I judged you before you even had a chance to prove yourself. He paused, then continued. My daughter wants to join the Navy. She's 16 now, and she's talking about becoming a SEAL. A year ago, I would have told her it was impossible, that women couldn't handle it. But now, when she talks about it, I think about you, and I realize that maybe I've been wrong about a lot of things. Samantha felt her anger toward Donovan dissipate. It took courage to admit being wrong, especially for someone like him. Chief, I appreciate the apology. And for what it's worth, if your daughter decides to pursue SEAL training, tell her to call me. I'd be happy to help her prepare. Donovan's eyes widened slightly. You do that? After what I did? You made a mistake, Samantha said. But you're owning it and trying to be better. That's all any of us can do. And if we're going to change the culture in this community, it has to start with understanding and forgiveness, not holding grudges. Thank you, Lieutenant, Donovan said quietly. I mean that. After Donovan left, Marcus looked at Samantha with renewed respect. That was impressively gracious of you. A lot of people would have held that grudge forever. Holding grudges takes too much energy, Samantha replied. Energy I'd rather spend on more important things. Besides, I think he's genuinely trying to change. That's worth encouraging. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Samantha divided her time between instructing the current class, developing new training materials, and preparing for her new role as Director of Training Innovation. She worked long hours, often late into the night, but she found the work energizing rather than exhausting. This was what she was meant to do. One evening in mid-December, Samantha was working in her office when she received an email that made her pause. It was from Lieutenant Winters, the candidate whose sister had been sick during Hell Week. The subject line read simply, "Thank you." She opened the email and read, Lieutenant Chun, I wanted to let you know that my sister Sarah made a full recovery. The doctor said it was touch and go for a while, but she's home now and doing great. Being able to see her after Hell Week ended meant everything to both of us. She kept asking me questions about SEAL training, and I told her all about the instructors, especially you. She was so impressed that a woman was helping to train Navy SEALs. She said she wants to be just like you when she grows up. I'm back at Coronado now, continuing with my training. I'm more motivated than ever, and part of that motivation comes from knowing that people like you are fighting to make this community better. Thank you for everything, ma'am. Petty Officer James Winters. Samantha read the email 3 times, feeling tears prick at her eyes. These moments, when she could see the ripple effects of her work spreading beyond just the immediate training environment, reminded her why she was here. It wasn't just about training better SEALs. It was about inspiring the next generation, showing young women like Winters' sister that they could aspire to any role they wanted, even in spaces that had traditionally been closed to them. She was composing a response to Winters when Marcus knocked on her door. Working late again? Always, Samantha replied with a smile. What's up? I wanted to talk to you about something, Marcus said, coming into the office and sitting down. I've been offered a position with SEAL Team 3. They need a new training officer, and they asked if I was interested. Marcus, that's fantastic, Samantha said. Are you going to take it? I think so, Marcus replied. It's a good opportunity, and honestly, I'm ready to get back to operational work. But I wanted to talk to you first because I think you should apply for my position as head instructor. Samantha was surprised. But I just got the Director of Innovation role. I know, Marcus said. But hear me out. The director position is important, but it's mostly administrative and research-focused. As head instructor, you'd still be doing that work, but you'd also be directly mentoring the next generation of instructors. You'd be shaping the culture of SEAL training from the ground level. That's where real change happens. Samantha considered this. Marcus had a point. The director role would give her influence, but the head instructor position would give her presence. She would be there every day, working with candidates, mentoring new instructors, leading by example. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, Marcus said. But don't think too long. They're going to start looking for my replacement soon, and I want to make sure they consider you. After Marcus left, Samantha sat in her office, thinking about the choice ahead of her. Both positions represented incredible opportunities, but they would take her in different directions. The director role was prestigious and would give her a platform to influence SEAL training across the entire community. The head instructor position was more hands-on, more direct, but also potentially more impactful in terms of day-to-day operations. She thought about her brother, about why she had come here in the first place. Danny had loved being a SEAL because of the brotherhood, the sense of being part of something larger than himself. He had talked about his instructors with reverence, about how they had shaped him into the warrior he became. If Samantha wanted to truly honor his legacy, maybe the best way was to do what those instructors had done for him. To be present, to lead by example, to shape the next generation of warriors through direct, personal mentorship. By the time she left her office that night, she had made her decision. She would apply for the head instructor position. The director role was attractive, but her heart was in the hands-on work of training and mentoring. That's where she could make the most difference. The next morning, she submitted her application to Commander Stevens. 2 weeks later, after a series of interviews and evaluations, she was offered the position. She accepted without hesitation. When the announcement was made, the reaction was mixed. Most of the training staff was supportive, recognizing her qualifications and the positive impact she had already made. Some were skeptical, questioning whether someone so new to the community should hold such a senior position. But even the skeptics couldn't deny the results she had achieved in her short time at Coronado. On her first day as head instructor, Samantha stood in front of the assembled training staff for a morning briefing. Looking at the faces before her, some friendly, some neutral, some still uncertain, she felt a deep sense of responsibility. These men would be looking to her for leadership, guidance, and vision. She couldn't let them down. I know some of you have questions about my appointment, she began. I'm young for this position. I'm relatively new to this community. And, yes, I'm a woman in a role that's traditionally been held by men. But I'm not here to change everything or prove a point. I'm here to uphold the standards that make SEAL training the toughest, most effective program in the world. I'm here to train warriors who can operate in any environment, overcome any challenge, and complete any mission. And I'm here to ensure that every candidate who walks onto this base gets the best training, the best mentorship, and the best chance to succeed that we can possibly give them. She paused, looking at each instructor in turn. I don't expect everyone to agree with me all the time. I don't expect this to be easy. But I do expect us to work together as a team, to respect each other, and to always put the mission and the candidates first. If we can do that, we'll be successful. So let's get to work. The briefing continued with discussions of the day's training schedule, candidate progress, and logistical matters. As Samantha spoke, she noticed something shift in the room. The skeptical faces became more engaged. The uncertain expressions became more confident. By the end of the briefing, even the doubters seemed willing to give her a chance. As the instructors filed out to begin the day's training, Senior Chief Richardson approached her. That was a good speech, Lieutenant. You're going to do fine in this role. Thank you, Senior Chief, Samantha said. I'm going to need all the support I can get. You've got it, Richardson assured her. We're a team, and teams take care of each other. Standing in the now empty briefing room, Samantha felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had come a long way from that first day when Chief Donovan had tried to kick her out of his training compound. She had faced skepticism, hostility, and doubt, but she had persevered. She had proven herself not by demanding respect, but by earning it through competence, dedication, and genuine care for the mission and the people. 6 months after becoming head instructor, Samantha stood on the beach at Coronado watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Behind her, the sounds of Hell Week drifted across the compound. Another class was in the middle of the brutal 5 an, a half-day ordeal, and Samantha had just completed her third Hell Week as head instructor. Each one had been different. Each had presented unique challenges, but all had reinforced her belief that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The numbers told part of the story. Under her leadership, injury rates had dropped another 12%. Completion rates had increased by 8%. More importantly, the quality of graduates had remained consistently high, with operational commanders reporting that recent SEAL classes were among the best prepared they had seen. But statistics only captured part of what Samantha had achieved. The real change was harder to quantify, but impossible to ignore. The culture at Coronado was shifting. It was still a place of extreme challenge and uncompromising standards, but it was also becoming a place that valued innovation, that recognized the importance of mental and emotional preparation alongside physical toughness, that understood warrior training was as much science as tradition. The old guard instructors who had initially resisted these changes were now some of their strongest advocates, having seen firsthand how the new approaches improved outcomes without diminishing the program's legendary difficulty. Samantha's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Lieutenant Hartley, who had successfully completed Hell Week with the class that started 3 months after his injury healed. The message read, "Just got assigned to Team 5. Heading to Virginia next month for advanced training. Thank you for everything, ma'am. My dad wants to meet you next time he's in California. Says he owes you a steak dinner for taking care of his son." Samantha smiled and typed back a response. "Congratulations, Hartley. You earned it. And tell your dad I'll take him up on that steak, but only if you're buying drinks." As she pocketed her phone, Marcus approached from the training compound. He had taken the position with SEAL Team 3, but made regular visits to Coronado to coordinate training protocols and maintain connections with the instructors. Their friendship had deepened over the months, built on mutual respect and shared commitment to excellence. "Another Hell Week in the books," Marcus said, coming to stand beside her. "How many did you start with this time?" 46, Samantha replied. "Finished with 31. Pretty good retention rate." "That's excellent," Marcus said. "And I heard about the rescue yesterday. Candidate Williams in the surf zone." Samantha nodded. The rescue had been intense. A candidate had been caught in a rip current during a surf passage evolution, similar to what had happened with Thompson during her first Hell Week. This time, one of her junior instructors had executed the rescue flawlessly, using the updated protocol Samantha had implemented. Williams was fine, suffering only minor hypothermia, and had insisted on continuing with his class. "The protocols work," Samantha said. "That's 3 major incidents in the past 6 months where we've prevented serious injury or death because instructors knew exactly what to do and had the training to do it confidently." "You should be proud," Marcus told her. "You've accomplished something remarkable here. The entire SEAL community is taking notice." "It's not about me," Samantha said. "It's about the mission. It's about training the best warriors possible and sending them into the world prepared for whatever they face." Marcus smiled. "That's what makes you good at this job. You genuinely believe that." They stood in comfortable silence for a few moments before Marcus spoke again. "I heard Captain Mitchell is putting your name forward for a Legion of Merit. That's a pretty big deal." Samantha was surprised. The Legion of Merit was a prestigious military decoration, typically reserved for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding service. "I don't know if I deserve that." "The hell you don't," Marcus said firmly. "You've revolutionized SEAL training, saved multiple lives, mentored countless candidates and instructors, and done it all while facing challenges that would have made most people quit. If anyone deserves recognition, it's you." Before Samantha could respond, her radio crackled to life. "Lieutenant Chun, we need you at medical. One of the candidates is asking for you specifically." Samantha keyed her radio. "On my way." "Who's the candidate?" "Petty Officer Chun, ma'am." Samantha felt her heart skip a beat. The candidate shared her last name, but she didn't think there was any relation. The SEAL program had several candidates named Chun over the years. Still, something made her quicken her pace as she headed toward the medical tent. When she arrived, she found the candidate sitting on a medical cot, looking exhausted but otherwise uninjured. He was young, maybe 22 or 23, with dark hair and features that seemed vaguely familiar. When he saw her, his face broke into a tired smile. "Lieutenant Chun," he said. "I wasn't sure if you'd remember me." Samantha studied his face more carefully, and suddenly, the pieces clicked into place. David? David Chun. Yes, ma'am, the young man confirmed. We met at Danny's funeral 7 years ago. I was his swim buddy during BUD/S. We stayed in touch after training, but then he deployed, and his voice trailed off. Samantha felt tears prick at her eyes. She remembered David now. He had been just a kid then, barely 18, standing in his dress uniform at her brother's funeral with tears streaming down his face. Danny had talked about him in his letters home, describing him as a talented operator with a bright future. David, I can't believe you're here, she said, sitting down next to him. How are you? Why did you call for me? David took a deep breath. After Danny died, I left the teams. I was young and stupid, and I blamed myself for not being there when it happened. I've spent the last 7 years trying to figure out who I am without the Navy. I worked construction, went to college, tried a bunch of different things. But nothing felt right. Finally, I realized that the problem wasn't the Navy. The problem was that I left before I was ready, before I had given everything I had to give. He looked at her with earnest eyes. I came back to honor Danny's memory, to finish what I started. And when I heard there was an instructor here named Chun, a woman who was Danny's sister, I knew it wasn't a coincidence. I knew it was a sign that I was doing the right thing. Samantha didn't know what to say. The emotions were overwhelming. Grief for her brother, pride in this young man's determination, and a deep sense that everything had led to this moment for a reason. Why are you in medical? She finally asked. Are you injured? No, ma'am, David said. I'm just exhausted. They told me I could take a few minutes to rest before the next evolution, and I asked if I could see you. I wanted to tell you that Danny would be proud of what you're doing here. He used to talk about you all the time, about how smart you were, how dedicated. He said you were going to change the world someday. I think he was right. Samantha felt a tear roll down her cheek. Danny always saw the best in people, even when they couldn't see it themselves. That's what made him such a good SEAL, and such a good brother. He was the best, David agreed. And I'm going to finish this program in his honor. I'm going to become the operator he believed I could be. You already are, Samantha said. You're here, you're fighting, you're refusing to quit. That's what being a SEAL is all about. Not the physical skills, but the mental determination to keep going no matter what. After David returned to his class, Samantha walked back to her office, her mind spinning with memories and emotions. She thought about Danny, about the last conversation they had before he deployed on his final mission. He had told her he was proud of her doctoral work, proud of her accomplishments. But he had also said something else. Sam, promise me something. If anything ever happens to me, don't let it break you. Use it. Channel it into something meaningful. Make a difference. She had kept that promise. Every day, every candidate she trained, every innovation she implemented, every life she saved was a fulfillment of that promise. And now, seeing David back in training, seeing how her work had rippled out beyond just her immediate impact, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known since Danny's death. Over the following weeks, Samantha continued her work with renewed energy. David made it through Hell Week and continued to excel in the subsequent training phases. She didn't give him any special treatment, but she did keep a close eye on him, making sure he had the support he needed while still maintaining the standards expected of all candidates. One afternoon, she received a call from Captain Mitchell requesting her presence at Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters. When she arrived, she found not just Mitchell, but also a vice admiral she didn't recognize and several other senior officers. Lieutenant Chun, Mitchell began. Thank you for coming. I'd like to introduce you to Vice Admiral Thomas Bradford, Commander of Naval Special Warfare Command. Samantha came to attention. Sir, it's an honor. Bradford smiled warmly. At ease, Lieutenant. Please, have a seat. We've been hearing remarkable things about your work at Coronado. Captain Mitchell has briefed me extensively, and I've reviewed the data on program improvements since you took over as head instructor. Impressive doesn't begin to cover it. Thank you, sir, Samantha replied. But it's been a team effort. I have incredible instructors working with me. Don't sell yourself short, Bradford said. Leadership matters. Culture matters. And you've managed to change both while maintaining the high standards we expect from SEAL training. That takes exceptional skill and judgment. He leaned forward, his expression becoming more serious. Lieutenant Chen, we're establishing a new command structure for all SEAL training operations. We're creating a special warfare training command that will oversee training across all facilities and ensure consistency in standards and protocols. We need someone to lead the instructor training and development division. Someone who understands both the science and the art of creating warriors. Someone who has proven they can earn respect while driving change. We'd like that someone to be you. Samantha was stunned. This wasn't just a promotion. This was a position that would give her influence over SEAL training worldwide. She would be responsible for training the people who train SEALs, for setting standards that would shape the future of naval special warfare for generations. Sir, I'm honored, she said carefully. But I need to ask, why me? I've only been in this community for a little over a year. There are officers with decades more experience who could fill this role. Bradford nodded. That's a fair question. The answer is simple. Because you've done in 1 year what most instructors don't accomplish in a career. You've proven that you can innovate without compromising standards. You've earned the respect of one of the most traditional and insular communities in the military. And, perhaps most importantly, you've shown that you genuinely care about the mission and the people. Those qualities are rare, and they're exactly what we need in this position. Samantha thought about what accepting would mean. More responsibility, certainly. Less hands-on time with candidates, probably. But also the opportunity to scale her impact across the entire SEAL community, to shape not just one training class, but all of them. Not just at Coronado, but everywhere SEALs were trained. May I have 24 hours to think about it? She asked. Of course, Bradford said. But I hope your answer will be yes. We need you in this role, Lieutenant. That evening, Samantha sat in her office at Coronado, watching through the window as candidates ran through yet another evolution. Her phone rang. It was her mother, calling for their weekly check-in. Hi, Mom, Samantha said, settling back in her chair. Hello, sweetheart. How are you? You sound tired. I am tired, Samantha admitted. But it's a good tired. I had an interesting day. She told her mother about the job offer, about the opportunity, and the responsibility it represented. Her mother listened quietly, as she always did, before responding. What do you think Danny would tell you to do? She asked. Samantha smiled. Her mother always knew the right question to ask. He'd tell me to go for it. He'd say that opportunities like this don't come along often, and that I'd be crazy to pass it up. Then, there's your answer, her mother said gently. You've been honoring Danny's memory beautifully, sweetheart. He would be so proud of everything you've accomplished. And I'm proud of you too. Whatever you decide, I know it will be the right choice. After hanging up, Samantha sat in silence for a long time. She thought about her journey, from graduate student to SEAL training instructor to head instructor to this new opportunity. Each step had been challenging. Each had required her to grow and adapt, and each had been worth it. She thought about Chief Donovan, who was now one of her strongest allies and whose daughter had just been accepted to the Naval Academy with plans to pursue SEAL training after graduation. She thought about Hartley, Winters, David, and all the other candidates whose lives she had touched. She thought about Marcus, Richardson, Mitchell, and the other mentors who had supported her. Most of all, she thought about Danny, about the brother who had believed in her, encouraged her, and challenged her to be better. She could almost hear his voice, laughing and saying, "What are you waiting for, Sam? This is your chance to make a real difference. Take it." The next morning, Samantha walked into Vice Admiral Bradford's office with her decision. Sir, I accept the position. Thank you for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Bradford smiled and shook her hand. Congratulations, Lieutenant. Or should I say, congratulations, Lieutenant Commander. The position comes with a promotion. 3 months later, Lieutenant Commander Samantha Chen stood on a stage at Naval Special Warfare Command Headquarters, receiving the Legion of Merit from Vice Admiral Bradford. The citation read in part, for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding service while serving as head instructor at Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training. Lieutenant Commander Chen's innovative approaches to warrior training, combined with her unwavering commitment to excellence and safety, resulted in significant improvements in program outcomes while maintaining the highest standards of naval special warfare. Her leadership, vision, and dedication reflect great credit upon herself and are in keeping with the finest traditions of the United States Naval Service. As the medal was pinned to her uniform, Samantha looked out at the audience. She saw her mother, tears of pride streaming down her face. She saw Marcus, Richardson, Mitchell, and the other instructors who had become her colleagues and friends. She saw candidates from classes she had trained, now wearing the SEAL trident on their uniforms. And there, in the back row, she saw David Chun, standing at attention with a smile on his face. But, in her mind's eye, she also saw someone else. She saw Danny, in his dress uniform, with that mischievous grin he always wore. She saw him giving her a thumbs up, his eyes filled with pride and love. After the ceremony, people lined up to congratulate her. Among them was Chief Donovan, now a senior chief, who shook her hand warmly. "Congratulations, ma'am. You've earned this, and so much more." "Thank you, Senior Chief," Samantha replied. "How's your daughter doing?" "She's thriving at the academy," Donovan said with obvious pride. "Already at the top of her PT scores. She's going to be a hell of a SEAL someday. And I have you to thank for showing me that was possible." As the crowd dispersed, David approached. "Congratulations, Lieutenant Commander. Danny would be incredibly proud." "Thank you, David. And congratulations on your graduation. You earned that trident." "We both did what we came here to do," David said. "We honored Danny's memory. We made a difference. And we proved that the only limits we have are the ones we place on ourselves." Samantha smiled. Danny used to say something similar. He said the only easy day was yesterday, but he also said that yesterday's impossibilities become today's routines if you're willing to work hard enough and believe strongly enough. "That sounds like him," David said with a laugh. That evening, Samantha returned to Coronado one last time before moving to her new position. She walked along the beach, watching the sun set over the Pacific, listening to the sound of Hell Week in progress behind her. Somewhere out there, 40-some candidates were being pushed to their absolute limits, discovering reserves of strength and determination they never knew they had. And she had been part of that. She had helped create the program that would shape these warriors. She had honored her brother's memory not through mourning and grief, but through action and dedication. She had taken the hardest moment of her life and transformed it into purpose. As darkness fell and the stars began to emerge, Samantha whispered to the wind, to the ocean, to wherever Danny's spirit might be. "I did it, Danny. I kept my promise. I made a difference. And I'm just getting started." The waves crashed against the shore, constant and eternal, carrying her words out into the vast ocean. And somewhere, in the space between the waves and the wind, she could almost hear her brother's voice carrying back to her, "I know, Sam. I've been watching. And I'm so damn proud of you." Lieutenant Commander Samantha Chun turned and walked back toward the lights of the training compound, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. She had faced skepticism, hostility, and doubt, and she had overcome all of it through competence, dedication, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. She had proven that barriers exist only until someone is brave enough and determined enough to break through them. And in doing so, she had not just honored one SEAL's memory. She had paved the way for countless others who would follow in her footsteps, showing them that with courage, determination, and belief in something larger than yourself, anything was possible. The story of the woman who almost got kicked out of SEAL training had become the story of the woman who transformed it. And somewhere in the night, on beaches and training grounds across the world, a new generation of warriors was being shaped by the changes she had made, the standards she had set, and the example she had shown. The legacy of Lieutenant Danny Chun lived on, not just in memories, but in action. And his sister, Lieutenant Commander Samantha Chun, was just beginning to write the next chapter of that legacy.